Hello there, I'm another Magento dev. In this video we are going to learn a few things. We're going to look at a few things. We're going to learn about how to build a search function in Vue JS. We're going to learn about how to use Magento data to power that search function. We're going to use the Magento GraphQL API to go get that information. Right then, let's get on with it. So let's get straight into it. We have got our sort of boilerplate here, and at the moment it is just literally a bit of holding code, like a holding component, if you like, for the search. It sort of looks and feels like a search, but it doesn't do anything. So what I want to do is I want to build into this, obviously this is Vue.js, I want to build into this the ability to be able to go after typing 3 characters to go to the Magento GraphQL API and pull back some product data. So it's a fairly simple concept, and one of those things that you can apply to any website in any sort of situation. There are a lot of different types of sites. Over an e-commerce, Magento sites have search functions, so hopefully this tutorial covers off a lot of different disciplines for a lot of different people. So where do I start? Well, with regards to this, me personally, I would always start with testing where I'm going to get the data from. So in here I've got a handy little gadget which no dev should be without, and it is called Altern. It's an extension of GraphQL. There's loads of these, by the way. This is just one that I picked up and I've been using recently. And what I'm able to do with this is a bit like Postman and things like that. I'm able to test some GraphQL queries. Excuse me. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to the Magento GraphQL API in my test instance, this guy, and I'm just seeing what data I get back. So I'm seeing what I can expect to sort of see in the end. So it gives me a starting point to make sure that right at the beginning, I would advise you do this first, because right at the beginning I want to make sure my queries are right. So I can test in here if I want to say, like, I don't know, bottoms, because this is a text. So Magento's API has a search function. So if I change it, bottoms, and then it brings back all the products with the keyword bottoms in there. And if I just double check this, because I want to make sure my search is viable. Right, so it's bringing back 2 products here, and it's searching for bottoms there, and it's finding it. But interestingly, that's the only, and this is what's quite good about this, is I've gone for the search term bottoms, right? And the 2 products it's bringing back, this one says bottoms, which is a direct match, which is good. This one only says bottom look, which is good for a search, right? So it's showing some sort of like text search functionality there. So I'm gonna go with this for the search. Obviously you could make it, you could use a like parameter and maybe just go for name, so you're only searching keywords, so you're not searching descriptions. That's one way to look at it. But you could build this basically bespoke in Vue.js or whatever code base you like. I'm doing it in Vue, to be controlled by, you can control this yourself. Right, so I've got my query working, so that's part 1. So I've tested this, so I'm going to the products API, and I'm bringing back some information. And the idea is I want to be able to start typing here, and then I want a little pop over to turn up here with the actual product data, with links through on the to the actual products on the site. Standard search. So right, where do I start with regards to the code? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write that function into my GraphQL API. Now I could write that in here. I could go to GraphQL in my script tags here in this component. That's absolutely fine. But I want to abstract it because I've already done that once within my module. And even if you're writing sort of a Vue.js app and you're not, this is a module that I'm currently building. See other tutorials on my channel. It's like, this is like number 3 in the sort of series, if you like, that I've been doing. So I'm going to stick to my best practices, and I would suggest that you guys stick to your best practices. And your best practice, if you're not building it in a Magento module and you're just using Vue.js, well, I would suggest abstracting your calls into some sort of middleware like this here. It just makes your code a little bit more manageable when working in sort of single file components, I feel. And you're able to use async await to go to these sort of JavaScript files to pull back your data. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So essentially, as I say, I've got one here which is going to an endpoint that a different endpoint where I'm pulling back products by SKU. So I'm just going to write another one. So I'm going to say export async function, and then I'm going to call it something. So I'm going to call it fetch products. Fetch products. So I'm just going to write this function the same, basically. It's the same basically as this one. So I've got one here, so I'm cheating a bit, but I know that this works. So there's one I made earlier, and I want to get basically the same stuff. I might take some bits out, but essentially I'm sending this query as a post query, exactly like this, look, to the GraphQL API. So I'm just going to change the bits I need to here. And the bits I need to change is I need to change this to search. Not in that one yet, in that one. And then I'm just searching for a string, right? Which is like that, I believe. And then instead of SKUs, I'm going to search for the query, and I'm going to pass the query into my function that way. So it's all built, so it seems like it's going to work, right? And yeah, okay, so we've got this part done, and now I need to I want to test it in my test I can get the data through. So the first thing I'm going to need to do actually is I'm going to need to import that script. So I'm going to import, and it was products, what was it? Remember, like save, fetch products. So I'm going to import fetch products from, and then my middleware, if you like, the GraphQL endpoint, Graph API, and then I can use this now, fetch products, as an await in, or an async await in a, say for example, which I'm going to do now, is a created function, just to test it's going to work. So created functions run when the component mounts, basically, or when the component's, no, it's wrong, when the component is created. But I can basically pass some data to a variable, and then I'd fetch. So this actually, but this actually needs to be an async created for function. Spell it properly. Async created for await function await, and then the query. Again, on the set, we'll say search query, and we'll make this easy to handle. So we'll make this a data object because I'm going to need them in a sec. So in here, I'm going to say data return. I'm going to handle our data like this, and then we'll call it search query, and then we'll put bottoms in here or something. Okay, I just need to comma that up. So that's going to go there and get that, and then I'm going to console log products. So hopefully this will get us an array back, like what we're getting in here, right? Just give that a quick refresh, make sure, right, there we go. So search is working, I'm getting my array back even, and just to test, look, sense checking it, that's the same, right? So I'm sending the same thing, I'm getting the same thing back. So we're sort of happy with that up to this point. Now I'm just going to go back into here, because I'm aware I copied and pasted this. Right, so first of all, this is now going and getting the JSON data, passing it to a variable called JSON, which is then I'm passing to a variable called product data, because I need to go into the JSON data, I need to go into data key, products key, and then items key. And the reason I need to do that is because if you look at the response, data, products, items, I don't want to bring back all of this because it just makes it messy basically and it's harder to handle once I've got it in my component. All I need in my component is the items, right? So I'm drilling into that array. So I'm going through the steps of the array, each key, and I'm bringing it back as product data. Okay, so now the sort of Vue bit, the Vue JS bit. So, or the front end UX bit. So first thing I want to do is I want to create a section for a method. So we'll say methods. And then in this method, we're basically going to have a function, and it'll look similar to this. But obviously I'm going to change these references, and we're going to say, call it search. Right, and so now we've got a method called search query, we'll call it. So it's a little bit more readable. Actually, no, that's called search query, we'll call it. Yeah, we'll just call it search, it'll be fine. Right, and now within an input directive, we're going to say search. So that's going to now trigger this. Okay, so we'll just test that works. So that's all built out. See, there's no reference now to the API call, but now there is. So I've put a set in the search thing, and I'm getting my array back. Obviously, it's not searching for the letters yet, because one, I don't want it to search for just the letters. I want it to search for after maybe 3 or 4 characters typed, and then run another search. Obviously, you can choose the functionality that you want. But yeah, how do we do that then? How do we set it up so it takes whatever's handled in here, it takes whatever's inputted into here and it handles it, and then we go search for it in here, right? How do we do that? Okay, so this is how I would do it. There's probably a million different ways you can do it, but this is a decent way that I would say is quite sort of readable for you learning it, and quite a simple way to do it. So vModel is basically going to bind in Vue.js. It binds my data attribute with my input field here. So it's basically going to replicate what I put. It's going to basically bind the input here with this data attribute, and you can see this happening and what that sort of means. So like, what does that mean? But you can see it happening, and then it sort of you'll get what it means. So if I type my name, you can see it's binding with the variable here, the data variable, and it binds sort of fully reactive. Yep, get me. So, oh, by the way, that should have triggered a number of requests, right? And now you can see it's actually searching for the letters that I'm putting in, because it's brought 20 products back there, 20, right? So we need to just sort of filter that down a little bit, because we don't want that happening every time. But what we want to do in any case is send the array that comes back to products here, this product array. So we're going to still get the products like that from my query, and then we're going to set this dot products with the array. But also, I'm just going to build it in now, is I want to say if this dot search query, its length is greater than or equal to, say, 3 characters to run the search. Which means that if I just type in a letter or 2, it's not going to bother running the search, so we're not going to be spamming the API, right? So let's just test that works. So 1 letter, nothing. So 1 letter, I'll tell you what, I'll search for bot. didn't seem to be triggering at all. Why is that? Oh, what have I done there? I'm basically setting a blank array. So it's doing exactly what I told it to do. What I need to do is set my array to products. I'm not console logging anymore, am I? So I need to say bottoms. There we go. Boom. There's my array for bottoms. Right, so it's bringing a product back. Now it's bringing 2 back for bottom. So that's working slightly different than before, but it was maybe bringing. I know what it was doing. Depends on how fast I go, right? So, right, if I search for bottom, and you probably weren't doing that before. Right, it's basically bringing back something. We'll work out how viable the actual search is in a bit, but it's bringing back. It's basically working how I want it to work now. But I need to extend it slightly because I want it to reset when there's less than 3. So I want it to sort of start again, if you like. So if a user is on the front end, say typing that type of thing. So we're saying bottom or bottoms. It's bringing back something. Look, it's bringing back nothing for bottoms. Then it's bringing back that for bottom. Right, and then if I remove the letters, I want it to go back and basically stop searching or basically reset the array. And the reason I want it to do that is because I'm going to base the actual. It's not quite done it then, has it? What I was going to say is I want it to base the popover, like the drop down that I'm going to write, based off if there's anything in the array. Yeah, it's because these dev tools couldn't keep up. It's pretty much going to work. I think that's pretty much working. That's all okay. Right then. So I want to show a list of products, right? So I need to get that working first of all. I like to see it working, and in fact, I don't necessarily, because I've got it's like a live search. I don't need this button. So underneath the form, I'm going to write just a real basic div just in a minute to just output some information, just so I can see it on the page all working. So on this div, I'm going to say vif, which is a view if statement, and then I'm going to say if there's products, which means if there's anything in the products array, then show this div. It's not going to let. The reason I'm getting this warning at the minute is because you've got to have one sort of root array. We'll call it search. So I'll just get that set up now. So basically, if there's products, I want it to show this div, and then inside this div, I want it to be a list of products. So we'll just say div, and then to get that to loop through the products array, I'm going to say v4 product. So you put the singular first. So I always set it up like this, by the way. So I'd put my index in here as well, because I'm going to need that in. I'll tell you why in a second. Products. In products, because then you always have to set a key, otherwise VS Code kicks off. So I'm going to at least do that. That's like my most basic code. And then in here, I'm going to say product dot. We'll say name probably. Just to get the name out if there's products. Okay, so if I type in here now, there we go. So that's pretty good. It's sort of, there we go. It's getting away. It's a little bit jumpy, but we'll sort out the UX. Or I could say tops. Hey, there's loads of tops. Look at that. So it's sort of, I mean, that for me is a viable search. It's fast. It seems quite reliable using the search parameter. I know there's like a duffel bag. Duffel bag. Brilliant. Alright, let's build this UI out now then. So you see, what I'm trying to show you here is my approach more than anything, and it's just an approach of caution, testing as you go along, relaxing problems, don't write too much all at once. If I was using Git here, I'd be committing as I'm going along, so I can always step back through my changes. It's just a cautious approach, making sure that the basics work first, and then fleshing over the top of that with the actual sort of with the actual code, you know, the stuff after, the more complicated stuff after that. Okay, so now we'll scaffold out the popover bit, the bit that we're going to use as the search. So obviously I don't want to, in terms of workflow, I don't want to keep having to type stuff in and test it that way. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do that, I'm going to generate an array of something. So if we say like bottoms, find it, what did I have it in view here? Just find my, oh, yeah, these two, right, and you can actually copy it here, look. So I'm going to copy the value, and then I'm going to, for now, I'm going to paste that array there, and all it's going to mean is that I've got something to work with. So if I output the name now, look, I'm just getting, it's just going to be on my screen, right? And I'm going to be able to see my updates a bit clearer without having to go back and forth into this, because it's going to have all the data in it that I want, basically. Okay, so let's get going with this bit. So as I said, I've got Tailwind installed in this project, so it's going to make it really easy for me to start rattling this off and just getting something that looks decent enough. So if we start with, I'm going to have it absolute position. So in Tailwind that is just absolute. Say about 90 pixels from the top. Left 0, and then we'll have it as a width. You know, like what we'll do is we'll make it a width of a particular. We'll do desktop first, obviously. So we'll have a width of a particular pixel width, and then we'll make it responsive. But Tailwind makes it really easy to do this type of stuff. Whack some padding in there and a background, just make it a white background, and then also we'll put some shadow on it, because I've got shadow on this stuff. I think it just looks good on a popover, but obviously all of this stuff is highly subjective. Okay, I also need to define my Z index. Z index at 50. Yep, there we go. So it's now sort of a little box, look, absolutely positioned to this side, and it's doing a job for the time being for us to sort of like scaffold out this box. So what else are we going to have? Well, we'll have it basically the same as these here, but just popping up slightly smaller. So we just want the, you know, the image, the name, and the price for now. But obviously we can include whatever we want from this array. So in terms of building this out, I've already, if you followed these tutorials thus far and you have a look at the playlist, you'll see other tutorials where I've touched on this, and please go back and visit those. But what I've actually got is I've already built myself a reusable products component, and it's here, look. So within products, I've got this reusable component, and within that I've got my image, which is here, and I'm outputting a WebP image, and then as a background, so it's all really optimized for my page speed and for just speed, and I've also got info, which then contains in it the name and the price. So I've got info down there, the name and the price. So I've made all these reusable, so I might as well use that here. So as I was sort of just testing there, bringing out the product name, that's all well and good, but now I've got a real handy reusable component called product, and all I need to do is pass this some product data. Because if I just remind you guys and myself here, look, all I'm doing here, look, is passing some product data to this, right? As you can see, like that. And this basically forms my entire sort of, you know, product object of what I need. So, but there's some important parts that are required within Vue, or important things to consider when doing this in Vue, is you're going to have to import the component, otherwise it ain't going to work. Oh, I've spelled from wrong. Right, yeah, so I'm importing the product. You can do it above that and below that, it doesn't matter, as long as it's below the initial as long as it's not inside your export default function there, you can put that anywhere, and then you've got to include the component or register, if you like, the component on the page, and you do that in a components block. Product. This should all spring back into life now. So there we go. So what has it done there? Look, it's got the product data through. Obviously, it's how it's displayed there, just in like columns. But I'm going to make this more of a grid. But that's the beauty of these types of components. I can now make this a grid. So I'm going to say, first of all, I'm going to make this flex. In fact, I'm going to move this. Right, I'm going to move this. I don't need this extra div. I can actually just loop around the product. Same difference. And that means I can just add a flex to this, which is Tailwind's flex grid. And now, obviously, they're appearing as more of a grid, but I want it to actually wrap. I don't want it to be any more than, so I want flex wrap. I don't want it to be any more than sort of 4 across. So I'm going to set this to, class is here. I'm going to set this to width 1/4. So that's going to make it a little bit more presentable. And I'm going to put a bit of padding around. I think I can do it from here. We'll have a check. I'm going to put a bit of padding around each product. Yeah, there we go. Right, and why are the images showing? Well, I touched on this as a little trick. So I touched on this on another live stream, actually, the last one I did. And because I haven't been to these products yet, if I just go to it, my instance hasn't generated the I haven't generated the image yet. So now if I go back to, so I'm just going to the other products as well, and it's sort of generating it. You can't see it because this is overlaying it, but you see the images coming now because I've gone to it. So it's actually the WebP is actually being generated in my file system now. I've been to it, so just in case you're stuck on that thinking why isn't it generating, you're working locally, in Magento it doesn't generate the images until you go to those pages. So there we go. We've got a couple of images. We've got our set, how it's going to pop over. I think that actually is a little bit. I think it needs to be 100 pixels from the top. Right, so it's out the way that search box there for when I run my actual one. What else could I do? It's looking okay, I suppose. It's pretty vanilla, isn't it? But there you go. So let's get this working in real time, because we've basically got it showing a demo array at the minute. So we'll just get rid of that. And now you can see it's still there, but even though it's blank. And that's because we need to see if there's a length of products before it displays. There we go. So now if we search for bottoms, there we go. It was going to bring up bottle then, which is cool. Yeah, and it's sort of working as a search, and it's pretty fast, isn't it? It's pretty cool. Obviously, we could add like a little placeholder, a little sort of what's it called, like a loading state to this if we wanted to before we went and got the products, to stop it from like jumping around. Like we could actually say go and get the products after the third letter, but then wait a couple of seconds, or even get them, we could say finish typing and wait a couple of seconds and then go. So there's loads of different functionality you could actually write to this to improve it, but I think what I've showed you in this is just sort of the bare bones, getting going. See, when there's a lot of products, that's not too bad. It's taken over the full screen, which is pretty cool. And the reason it's done that is because I said in here, I said min for the width. So the minimum is going to be 900. So once it gets bigger than that, there we go, sort of a pop over search. Once it goes bigger than that, it's going to, and then it disappears when I get rid of it. It's going to take over the screen. So track. So there you go. Got a bit more going. Men's. So that should be anything that comes up with men's. We'll have to like sense check this, but this is the most basic way you can do it, and I think it's a really cool concept to sort of start with. Oh, yeah, there you go. So if you like this content, I know it's been a bit of a sort of a meander. We've covered a couple of different frameworks, and we've covered Magento, we've covered Vue, we've covered how to GraphQL, how to get from GraphQL. We've covered quite a bit here, and we've thrown together quite a responsive and quick and handy little search module really quite quickly. So yeah, if you like this content, please subscribe to the channel, give us a like on the video, pop a comment in there if you've got anything to add, and I will no doubt see you in the next one.